Ladies, gents, boys and girls, welcome back. This is still David from Virgil. In the previous video I showed you how to encrypt and decrypt a file. Remember, we used a public key to encrypt this file, and then we used a private key to decrypt it back. That's how simple it was. In this video I'm going to show you a very simple end-to-end encrypted chat, for which I'll create two users, Alice and Bob. Both users will have a private key, and that's what I'm going to do first. So let me use the Virgil CLI tool to generate a private key. That's going to be Alice's private key. And I'll set a password for Alice to protect her private key. So here it is. Let me just make some space up here. Okay. And I'll do the same for Bob. Generate a key, Bob's private key, and Bob will have a different password. Now, what I'll be doing, I'll use Virgil's card service, which is this directory service where you can look up users in our system. So if you build a chat app and Alice wants to send a message to Bob, she can look up Bob and she will be able to look up Bob's public key, which means that she'll be able to seamlessly encrypt stuff to Bob. Let me show you how that works. First, let me create a card for Alice. I'll be using the card create command. For key, I'll set Alice's private key, and then I'll have to set Alice's password, or I have to remember Alice's password here. So we'll be using Alice's private key to create an application level card, which means it's not a global card, but it's something that lives within the application. And I'll set an email address for Alice, by which Bob and other users can look her up. And I also have to set the config file so that the CLI tool knows which Virgil account to speak to. So here it is, Alice's email address, and this is her public key. The tool generated a public key from her private key. Let's verify if she is really indeed in our system in the cloud already. I'll do a card search. I'll set the config, and then all I do is just type in her email address and say, let's look up Alice in Virgil's card service. There she is. Now I can use her public key to encrypt data to her. Isn't it awesome and simple? So let me do the same thing for Bob. I'll create a card using Bob's private key. That's Bob's password. And I'll set, application scope. And then I'll set Bob's email. bob@chatapp.com. And hit enter. And that's Bob's public key, and that's his record in our card service. And what comes next is I'll pretend I'm Alice and I'm echoing a line of text into a file. So that's my message text. It showed up here. This is the text that I'll be sending to Bob, but let's see, did it get in? Cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to encrypt that message using the CLI encrypt command. Output will be my encrypted message. And here comes the magic part. Instead of setting a public key that I'm encrypted that message with, I'll be setting Bob's email address. And the Virgil SDK will look up who that person is and download this public key and encrypt the message with that public key. And here it is. I can already delete the original decrypted or clear text message. And let's look into the encrypted file. Let's look at how ugly it is. Awesome. So imagine this is the data that Bob will get. So let me just simulate, or just imagine that I'm taking that encrypted message over some channel and Bob gets it. And remember, we used Bob's public key to encrypt that message to him, and all we did is just referred to Bob's email address. So I'm Bob now, and I just got that message, and this is how I decrypt it back. Use the CLI's decrypt command. For input, I'll set the encrypted message file, and I'll set my private key as the key that will decrypt it. Oh, sorry, Bob, yes. And there you go. Here's the message. Now let me do another message back to Alice just to show you how it works again. I'll type in a line of chat. I'll echo it into a file. Great, here, there. And message.txt. Here's the message that Bob created in his app, and then I use the CLI to encrypt that file again. Output will be the encrypted message, and remember, I'll be using simply Alice's email address, which the Virgil SDK will look up for me in the background, will download the public key, and will encrypt the message with it. I don't have to deal with all that stuff. Oh, sorry, yes, I need to set the config file so that the CLI tool knows which Virgil account to speak to. Cool, so I'm deleting the clear message. Here's the encrypted message. Let's look into it. Nice and ugly. And now I'm going to use the same channel to bring that back to Alice. And she got it. And let's pretend I'm Alice again. And this is how I decrypt it back. Decrypt. Input is my message file, encrypted message file. And I'll be using my private key to decrypt it. I have a password set for the private key. And there you go. In the next video, if you bear with me for another few minutes, I want to show you another use case when there are multiple people chatting, and this video demonstrated how easy and simple it is for two people to chat. But imagine if there's a third person wants to join that chat, and you want that third person to see the entire message history of 2,000 messages, but we have never used that person's public key to encrypt those messages. How do you do that? Are you going to go back and re-encrypt 2,000 or 20,000 messages? Or are you going to build your app a little smarter? And the answer is the latter, and that's what I'm going to show you in the next video. So bear with me.